Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast. I'm about all things in software development. Frank, I recently saw a tweet.
Hmm.
I saw one tweet. I saw a tweet.
You still are on social media then. It's good to know.
Yeah, more than I'd like to be. Let's say.
They pull you back in every time, huh?
Yeah, I try. Yeah, I would say with like the Copilot stuff and the CLI and the VS Code work, it's pulled me back in. But also, like, it's really fun to talk about the stuff and show the stuff off. But I recently saw that someone was saying, "Oh, I see on social media that a bunch of engineers are building with AI and they're building a bunch of stuff, but no one ever talks about making money or talks about shipping it to the app store. No one talks about the long term of it. Everyone talks about aspirational goals. And I myself am a person that builds apps usually for myself, in which I just put them out there into the world for free or very minimal monetization. And we've talked about some monetization and different strategies. And, I make taco money, not too bad. I'm not retiring off it, but some taco money. I make more money off of YouTube. But this year, Frank, we are celebrating the 20th anniversary of iCircuit.
Not quite. Close, though. Let's be honest. You had me check the calendar. I'm like, what year is it? Was there a time warp last night? Because I'm bad at anniversary, so you're just like, oh, God, did I forget to get a card for iCircuit? Something. Not quite 20 years. 2010 is when I released it. So 16 years. It'll be 16 years in July.
Wow, so we missed the 15th year anniversary of iCircuit.
I missed it. I should have done, I still kick myself. I should have done something at the 10, the 15. We'll have to do it at the 20 now. Make some stickers, make some hats, whatever. Who cares? Just celebrate the fact, like, software that it's I don't want to pat myself on the back too much, but things don't last for 5 years, let alone 10 years, let alone 15 years,
It's very impressive when you think about it. Yes. I mean, much software comes and goes, right? There's some things are canonical in my mind, right? Like Visual Studio, it's like 25 years old. VS Code's 10 years old, right? iCircuit's older than VS Code. Obviously like just normal things I'm using, but there are now with the world of apps and generation, like I have apps that I've been now maintaining for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, which is kind of crazy to think about. Like the cycling app, the skiing app that I have. Some other apps have come and gone, and that's okay. But yeah, iCircuit, which was out there originally, and the funny part is that you should have crept the price up to like above $15, so that way for the 15-year anniversary you could have reduced it for anniversary
every year
sale.
It just goes up $1. Yeah.
So you got to get to above 20. But I want to talk about iCircuit because you've been shipping a lot of app updates across the board. And I wanted to talk about what it means to be shipping, maintaining, supporting. This is your big app. Now, you have many apps, right? When you go and you look at the Kruger Systems Inc., we can see that we have the pupillary distance, the Fairy Amigo, the Continuous, the Calca, the Math Agility, the MoCast, the iCircuit 3D, the HoloViz, the night vision goggles. He's got the clean room. He's got all the stuff, right? You got all the apps. And those are just apps that are still on the App Store. Now, you do a pretty good job of putting them and keeping them. Math Agility has been on there since like iOS 2, I think.
There's a bunch that aren't on there anymore. I still see, because Apple, there doesn't seem to be a way to hide your old app. So every time I log into Apple, there's a little bit of a graveyard there. I'm like, those ideas. Ooh.
The graveyard is the one that still have the placeholder icons. Yeah, it's like that means like that the placeholder icons mean that you had the idea, you registered the app ID, you were ready, you just never uploaded a build actually to like get it through.
Oh, I have way too many of those.
Everybody does.
That's embarrassing. Yeah. Okay.
But I want to talk about it because iCircuit, you've said and been quoted before, at least to me, like it's one of the main ways that you make income, right? As an independent app developer, and now in this age of AI, we're sitting here on February 28th, the last few hours that you can burn through credits and drain them, and as I assume you update a bunch of apps. But I want to kind of just talk about a little bit of how iCircuit got there. I know we've probably done this podcast before, but relive the memories. Where it's been in that squishy middle part as you started to develop other applications, right? And you started to fan things out. And then where is it at now and going forward in the age of AI? And additionally, how do you balance supporting these other apps and also at the same time, how worried do you get when you have like one main
Oh
money
yeah.
maker, right? Which is the same worry because when you think about it, I have one main career at my job at Microsoft. I have one. That's it. It's the same. You
Hmm.
have many apps, right? They're all their own little apps, app
Yeah.
little money makers. But then there's a big one, right? So
Yeah.
it's the same balance, right? That we're all playing and side hustles, main hustles. iCircuit is the main hustle. iCircuit 3D continuous, the side hustles, if you will, for Kruger Systems Inc. So I want to talk about that. So let's start at the beginning of
Mm,
iCircuit and let's talk about the lineage of that, and then I'll break it down. So I've quoted in my mind, I think, where I want to take this story, but I'll let you go
okay.
on. The origin story of iCircuit in the days when .NET just maybe started to run on iOS.
The origin story is actually I've it's kind of clear in my head because it was a important time. The iPad had just come out, and the iPhone had been out for a little while, and we were making some apps for it and things like that. But then the iPad came out, and I remember thinking, "This is a cool device." Like people take it for granted now, especially if you grew up with them. But imagine a world where there wasn't an iPad, and now there was an iPad. It was
Mm.
we had those terrible netbook things, those tiny laptops, and those were all atrocious. And here was this beautiful high res. It was, it was low res at the time, but it was high res to us. And it was this cool little device you got. But I remember even stood in line for it. I got a cool T-shirt for standing in that line. Heady days, heady days. But I remember really getting the device and thinking, oh wow, there's really not that many great apps for it. Here's a device that is different from the iPhone because it's big enough where you can actually use it as a computing device, as a tool for creating things. The iPhone was very much a content consumption device, whereas the iPad, in my mind, was like, oh, here's a better laptop, or here's a different kind of laptop. Here's like a real computer. Um, but I was disappointed. There just weren't that many professional apps on it. And so I had it in my mind. I knew at that point that I was going to start creating some kind of more content creation type apps. That's what the device needed. And I thought, oh, my skills have gotten up good enough at this point where I can actually start diving into that stuff. But iCircuit wasn't the first thing I wrote for. The first thing I wrote for it was an RSS reader with a cool Star Trek user interface. LCARS reader. It was beautiful until I got sued into oblivion. Um, but that was the first time I actually wrote an app that made me money. So I finally, after 2 years of working on apps for mobile devices, and I really wasn't profitable at all, let alone breaking even or anything like that. Finally, I had written one app that was actually making some money, LCARS Reader, and that gave me the confidence to try to build a bigger app. At that point, I'd concluded small apps don't pay the bills. You got to build something bigger. So it was this confluence of finally I had a small break. There's a cool new device out there, and I knew what direction I wanted to take it with a bigger app, more full feature, where you can actually do creation type stuff. Um, the circuit part, I don't know. I'm an electrical engineer. I always wanted a better circuit app out there. So it's hard for me to remember the exact origin of why I decided on that app in particular, but I can tell you more about the environment as and in the context for all that. And that's where I was in June, July of 2010. I was like, gotta write a big cool app for this iPad.
I think it's unique too because you're right. Like even to this day, I don't really make iPad apps because
Mm-hmm.
I mean most of my apps just work on iPad, but they're not like optimized, right? They're just the same thing. A lot of mine are more consumption or things that we're doing every single day. So I always focus iOS first. And I remember those early days of iPad and Android tablets that were coming out, and Windows 8 and these different tablet form factors coming out. And it really was creation, right? You were drawing, you had different inputs, right? It was big, a lot of, and then the content creation ended up being mostly just like games. Like it just was mostly games that were like really big on
Yeah.
it. And people were like, oh, Fruit Ninja, right? Just I got a bigger screen for Fruit Ninja. So I think that was really unique. And I think also at this time, like I believe the App Store was in the state where it was free or paid apps, and that was it. I don't think were there
That's
even
it.
in-app purchase. There was no
No,
subscriptions, no in-app
nope.
purchases,
It's a
nothing.
better world, honestly. People weren't even doing that thing where it's like, it's freemium, go create an account. And because there were no in-app purchases, the freemium model really wasn't flying. And especially wasn't the current model of free, but now you have to create an account and subscribe to a service. That model hadn't taken off either. So they were the beautiful, wonderful days before the subscription world hit us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which made it better. Like when iCircuit released, it was more expensive than it is today. I released it. You had to pay $20, $20 for an app, and I got a lot of pushback from people. But it was my philosophy back then, and it kind of still is today, that I'd rather build a big app that's expensive than support a million apps that are $2 a piece, and then I only make 50 cents per purchase on them. I'd rather ask for a bigger price and focus my attention on one big thing and give it all my effort.
We were talking, Heather and I were just awning, and like we were just talking about this. I'm building a lot of apps and shipping a lot of apps like Tiny Clips, right? Which is my new favorite
Mhm.
side project. And Jeremy Thake on Twitter was like, "Hey, like, I think I'm just going to switch from Snagit, which is from TechSmith, who makes Camtasia, which is software I use,
Mhm.
to using
Mhm.
Tiny Clips. Is like I just want this one feature, and I was actually developing it, which is funny. And so Heather, we're in the sun, and she's like, "Oh," and I was up late last night, like working on code and grinding on code.
Okay.
She's like, "Well, how many of these apps are making you money?" And I was like, "Uh." None of the ones that I'm working on currently. I was like, the cycling app. I was like, that's the one that really
Is
only
it?
makes me
Yeah.
any money. I mean, my YouTube account that I'm not making any videos for right now because I'm too busy coding. Um,
Yeah.
and
Just gotta turn that webcam on, buddy.
yeah, and then I told her, I was like, well, maybe I'm adding a pro mode to when I add a pro mode to Tiny Clips as I'm well known doing pro modes, and
Mhm.
because I told her about this uh I told her about this thing, and she's like, "Oh," so I was like, "That's $40 a year to get Snagit or whatever." She's like, "Wow." And she's like, "Well, how
Yeah.
much are you going to charge for yours?" I was like, $5 one time purchase. And she's like, "I think you're doing it wrong, right?" And I was like, "Probably,
I
yeah,
don't think you're gonna buy a house at $5 per purchase. No. The economics are kind of rough. There aren't many of us in the world who survive, who make a living off of the App Store. Most people work for a big company or work for a startup or something with some kind of financing, and they're collecting a salary and they're writing apps for iOS and making their money through a salary. I'm in the wonderful and yet scary position of directly selling to customers. And so I actually have to charge for these things. I have to put a bigger price on it than $5 per year. That just won't do it, James. Like,
so
because every customer is support too. That's what I think about.
yeah,
I've had this app for sale for 15 plus years. There's people who paid $20 in 2010 who have gotten updates a couple times a year for 15 years without paying a dollar more. And that's fine. But it means I have to constantly find new customers for it and I have to keep charging for it.
yeah, it is a hard model, especially now. It's like it's would almost be nearly impossible to make it free, right? And we've talked about changing that. I mean, you could, and then or a different
Yeah.
SKU, and then doing something funky, and then it'd be all weird. It's just kind of in this weird boat. But you put out iCircuit into the world, and it's an overnight success. Frank retires. He's like, "Is it good?" Like, what's the status for like that first kind of year of
um,
iCircuit out in the world?
It was an overnight success. Yeah, I'm pretty lucky there. I remember, I actually went out camping because this is back when app reviews would take 2 weeks. You never knew when they were actually gonna approve your app, and there was no manual release. It came out when it came out. So I happened to be out camping, and I remember I would stand in the middle of a river trying to get, like, cell phone connection, like, waving my iPhone in the air in the middle of a river trying to, like, "Did I get any sales, or is the app even out there?
Yeah.
Did I get any sales?" And then the first day it actually got sales, the sales were 10 times higher than my biggest day ever on the App
Wow.
Store. And it's just one of those things, and there was no marketing or anything. And so it kind of taught me a bad lesson, but I'll pass on that bad lesson to everyone so they can learn the same bad lesson. If your app is good, it will find its own audience kind of automatically. If you have to market it completely and you have to beg people to come find it and you have to grind away at every customer, then maybe the app isn't so great. But if the app is at least unique or doing something that wasn't available before, it was the only circuit simulation app on the on the whole operating system at the time, so it had that wonderful unique market position. It just made money right away without me doing basically anything other than writing the app. And so that the terrible lesson I learned was if the app is good, it just makes money. That's a bad lesson because marketing is important and marketing is useful. If people, the App Store was so much smaller back then. Now the App Store is huge. People don't browse the App Store the way they used to. Like you got this iPad, it came with 10 apps. You're like, well, I need more apps. So you go to the App Store and you look around to see what there is. I don't think that's exactly how people do this anymore. Now people kind of know what apps they want to get for it. Their friends are talking about it. They see it on whatever, on the social medias or whatever. So I don't think that lesson exactly is the correct lesson to learn, but there's some truth to it. If your app is good, it will sell at some level, at least, without any marketing.
Yeah, I definitely, that resonates a lot with me. And I think obviously, when we're both getting started, it was a very different app store, not just how people browse, but just the number of apps that were out there. Like even 5 years ago, when I was putting out the My Cadence application, the cycling app, there was only like one other competitor. There was a few other like bigger fitness companies, but they kind of did a bunch of things. There's only one other competitor, and I didn't like their app. So I built my own, which is a good way of doing it. But then
Yeah.
my app kind of, I think, being free and taking off and all this other stuff, and obviously with the pro mode and stuff was helpful, which didn't gate any features. It kind of took off to some, success. But now in this world, right? Like Tim Hewer, he just sent me a test flight link. He's like, "Look what I made last night." And it's just basically like my app, but like with more features, right? I still think mine's better, but mine's handcrafted. I wrote every.
Artisanal.
It's
Yeah.
artisanal. It's artisanally crafted. But it's just a different landscape. There's a lot of apps that are going out there. So I think you had this great privilege, not just new devices, but early app store. Great idea, unique market fit. And then, you and I have talked about in the past, I'm sure we discussed on the pod, but also it's a great educational spin too for circuit simulation. And I know that that's also a big play where things come in good. And I think then word of mouth comes in. Like you were an electrical engineer. And guess what? There's a lot more electrical engineers and people learning electrical engineering. So bingo bango, you have an ideal market fit of new electrical engineers every single year, basically, that are candidates.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all students who buy it every September. I really appreciate that. I was really lucky those first years too. Apple put it as a demo app on the iPads in the store. So people saw it in the store. That was great for sales. And then it even got featured on Apple's business website where they were like, hey, look, the iPad can be used for business apps. And here's this business app, iCircuit. I'm like, well, it's not really a business app, but don't leave it there. Leave it there. Don't take it down. I think Apple realized also that they needed more productivity apps, more content creation type apps and that kind of stuff. So I was lucky to get all those. But going back to your point from earlier, I didn't have any faith that I could just retire at that point because it's making good money, but I just assume next month it's going to be making $0. So even on its first month of sales, which were excellent, and I'm getting all these promotions and all that kind of stuff, I still have this constant nagging feeling in the back of my head. I continue to have it to this day of it can go away anytime. Anything can happen and those sales can go to zero. And I'm back to, well, now I have a mortgage. I used to have rent. Now I have a mortgage to pay for and all this and food. I still like to eat food from time to time. So there was always this nagging thing that I need to keep working and keep finding other apps. And so I would say that balancing act has probably been the hardest one of deciding how much of my time do I devote to maintenance versus seeking out the next app. And I'd say in my career, I've probably gotten that balance completely wrong, to be thoroughly honest. Um, I think I allowed doubts and all that stuff for too many years. The doubt that that money could go away at any time really drive me to keep looking for more and more apps. Whereas I probably could have spent at least 10 of those years just doing maintenance on iCircuit and kind of perfecting it and getting it to be the greatest app ever. I still think it's a good app, but it hasn't, I've spent a lot of time working on other apps too, to to feed that little devil on the back of my head yelling at me that the app can go away anytime.
Well, it's like any job, right? You're in the job and it's been 15 years, and for 15 of those years, you have to work and maintain, right? Maintenance is one of the hardest things. You've been answering questions, you've been trying to add new features, you've been trying to evolve it. So those 14 years, those 15 years between release and let's say 6 months ago, pre, cranking on those tokens, and .NET 10 as well. I think like you had many apps, and we've been doing this podcast for like ever, right? So
Mhm.
many of those years have also been spent podcasting and talking about
Yeah.
many of the things that go into the app or different things that you're thinking about putting into different applications. So you think you got the balance wrong? Do you think you got the balance wrong because like there wasn't another like success of that status? Like you've had successful other apps, right? So I don't want to
Mhm. Mhm.
diminish the hard work that you've had. I don't want anyone to think that because I've purchased many of your apps and I've
Thank
demoed
you.
many of your apps on stage at keynotes like Continuous and how cool this is. They're very it's very spectacular. And you and I worked on you mostly just worked on some really cool other contract apps and things like that that you and I know about. But um, in that, like, if you could go back and do it, like, do you think you would change those 14 years? Or do you think that the joy from those other app creations actually negate that sort of possibility of perfecting and polishing iCircuit to be the perfect thing? Because that balance is hard.
Yeah, okay. You're right. I'll take Kelka as an example because Kelka has a wonderful fan base. I'm very proud of the app. A lot of people find it useful. It just doesn't make me as much money as iCircuit. It's really hard. It's like a critical success, but not necessarily a monetary success. It's not paying the bills. And so it's really hard. I'm proud of that app. I'm super proud of Continuous iCircuit 3D. All the apps. I'm very proud of them. I think where I say the balance I got wrong is the anxiety and the stress. Honestly, I wish I could go back to 2010, Frank, and just be like, chill out. The app is selling today. It's going to be selling tomorrow, and tomorrow's tomorrow. Just relax, focus on features, focus on quality. You don't have to always be pushing yourself to find the next thing. So I could have been a lot more stress free, a lot less anxiety, and that kind of stuff. But you're right. It's see, it's a hard balance because I am very proud of the other apps I've created, and that hunger, that striving for the next thing, obviously keeps me paying attention and keeps me trying new ideas and things like that. That's good. Um, or I think it is. It's the I could have been more relaxed, and I could have like there were good 6 month to a year periods where, to be blunt, I just wasn't maintaining iCircuit. It would fall behind for a year, and then Apple would come out with a new OS. I'm like, oh geez, now I do actually have to update this thing, and so I'll work on it for a few months and then get it cleaned up and polish it and reship it, that kind of thing. Um, I think I could have just had the more relaxed lifestyle of, sitting in airports and just hammering away at more features on iCircuit rather than striving. Yeah, it's hindsight's 2020, but even then it's not really, is it? It's not 2020. Yeah, I could have been more stress free, but then I wouldn't have had things like clean room and all those. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do think that one thing that I think about of these experiments, right? and experiments that become real applications, is that they do let you tinker with new ideas, right? And let you tinker with different new capabilities that maybe then apply that may have a different application later on to your main application. I think of
Mhm.
even in this case, we've been playing a lot with like Apple Intelligence and like Foundry and OpenAI, like doing different things with AI. Like, oh, does that make some sense? Or can we, as we adopt these new capabilities in it, or could we adopt some new 3D rendering or do something like that? You know what I mean? Like, there's these different
Yeah.
capabilities um, that we have in the app and then just new operating system features as well. So playing with those, not necessarily toy apps, but some are toys and some become real apps, right? Definitely enable you to, for all intents and purposes, come up with unique ideas that maybe go back into your main app that you wouldn't if you're just stuck. Because sometimes when you are grinding on a legacy application, um, which is fun to think about, just legacy,
Mhm.
the apps. So I mean, it's 15 years old, so it's definitely a legacy, right? But it's a legacy code base, but it's been modernized over the years. But in the world of apps, like you continue to evolve because Apple and Google force you to, right? They continue to
Yeah.
force you to upgrade and change things as well. Um, but I think that like that gives you the opportunity, right? Because if you weren't experimenting, then you just really wouldn't.
Yeah, I'm
The creativity juice has to come from somewhere, right? And just being like, what else can I put in this application, right?
yeah.
What else could I
I
do?
It's true. The one that keeps coming to my mind is Continuous, my IDE. That had probably one of the best reactive code editors I've ever written. It still does, obviously. Um, it had a full-blown debugger built into it. A debugger that works both at the UI level and can communicate with a PC. I don't actually expose that in the app, but I wrote that for reasons. And I'd never written a full-blown production quality debugger before. So, iCircuit actually has microcontroller support in it. You can program Arduinos in it and pick controllers in it. And the other day, I'm like, the one thing missing from this is a debugger. It's you can write code in it, but it's not the greatest debugging code environment. I'm like, oh, I know how to write a debugger. I've literally done it before. I know all the hangups. I know the gotchas. I know how to write a simple one. I know how to write a complicated one. I know how to do all those. So yeah, as a developer, I've definitely grown over time, and that gives you confidence to fill in all those other little bits. And yeah, I do hope to add AI features to it. So these last 9 years of me obsessing over AI and machine learning, I'm definitely applying that stuff to iCircuit also. So you're right. It's just saying it's too bad you can't go back to your old self and be like, chill out. Just chill out, dude. It's gonna be okay.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Yeah, the the challenge always becomes, you know, balance. There's just balance, right? At the end of the day, right? And I think had how any job is, right? When there's these additional pressures, or if you were to see these big dips, right, you probably would have adjusted course, right? As far as the application, have there been times in those 15 years where you actually did have to course correct? You're like, oh, I'm not giving it enough attention. I am seeing a dip, that you were worried because your attention wasn't there. Were there any moments like that you learned from?
Plenty, plenty. I would. It's hard for me to like give an exact time frame or something like that. But when I was mentioning, there was like there was probably a period, I forget when, but maybe a year I went without doing proper work on the app. And that was when I had to take a step back and be like, this is wrong. This is the wrong balance right here. Because this app is making me the money I'm living off of, and it deserves my attention. The users deserve my attention. It's a little bit foolish of me not to be giving it my attention. So that was a little bit of a wake up moment for me where I had to get my act together. Like, I remember when I started working on this, like, GitHub wasn't really a thing. CI/CD was not a thing. And like, I had to modernize basically the whole code base and the pipeline and all that stuff. to get it to the point where I could actually do proper releases all the time, where I felt comfortable doing more frequent releases and get the quality up and actually have some kind of unit test running and that kind of thing, where I'm like, this app deserves my attention and I need to rebalance everything. It's still important for me to be building new apps and searching, learning new things and looking for that next big app and all that kind of stuff, for sure, 100%. But those have to take a secondary seat to the thing that's actually making me money, turns out. Priorities, learning priorities. I think that's it. iCircuit 3D, which I'm very proud of. I made a lot of corrections to the iCircuit engine itself. It's not just a prettier UI on the same engine. There were things I was frustrated with in the old engine. And I said, okay, I'm going to build this thing, iCircuit 3D, and I'm going to make a lot of those fixes. Well, iCircuit 3D, lovely app, love the app. I love everyone who's ever paid for it, but it just doesn't make me the same money as iCircuit 1. And so I thought, well, it's foolish to have all these improvements to the engine in an app that's not making me all the money. So I then took time to backport a lot of those fixes back into the older engine to make sure that I was getting the same benefits everywhere, which makes perfect common sense if you're like a program manager and all that stuff. But when you're in the heat of the moment, like you're like, oh no, it's just a version 2 and it's going to be an improvement on it. Well, version 1 is still selling well and people are still using it and they still prefer it over the 3D version because it's a more classical style for how circuits are drawn and all that kind of stuff. So it would behoove me to improve that engine also. It sounds so obvious in retrospect, but if you're in my shoes, like it's not the most obvious thing.
Yeah. No, I think it's a good lesson learned. And I feel like we see this like sometimes in video games, right? Like we see especially modern day video games where there might be a sequel that comes out, but actually like the prequel continues to sell, or like they'll do re-releases and remasters and these things.
Oblivion.
Or even Oblivion.
They fix things. They change things in that, It's not Oblivion. I played original Oblivion. That is not Oblivion. It's better.
Yeah. And I was just watching a Digital Foundry review of the latest Switch. They did a Switch 2. There's a definitive edition. Patch 1.2 came out. And what's really cool is like, they're these even just performance and patch and modernization efforts can go a long way just for your users, but also for kind of publicity of the application when it is substantial. A good example is like in this 1.2 patch of Oblivion, Elder Scroll, like is substantially upgraded. Like they have a 60 FPS mode, a 30 FPS mode. They fix like a bunch of latency. They fix a bunch of image visual stuff, and just like this is the definitive way to play it on Switch or Switch 2 in general. So like it gets a breath of fresh air, right? And people might go not only just revisit, but now actually go and purchase it. They might have been waiting for that, for example. Or they might be
available
using
for Switch, like the Switch I have. I can play Oblivion on that.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Now you tell me, James. Now you tell me. My God.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's probably like the best approach, but it definitely is there, and it will definitely work well for you, just fine. I think that one's capped at like 30 FPS, but but it's good. It's still Oblivion. It's but talking about legacy software, that game is also extremely old too, and like they keep bringing it back. So I think that there's a lot to be learned in it, and I would say this is like the more things I build in general. And the newer things that I use, I'm immediately applying those core principles to older applications and to newer applications that I'm building too. Yeah. A great example is the weight tracking app, where and the podcast app that you pushed me to learn Swift Data and CloudKit.
By version 5, we had it right.
We had it right, and now. Once I learned those approaches, now I'm actually able to apply that to older software and newer software, like so, and things that I'm building that are out there. So it gives you that as a sort of breath of fresh air to add new things in and make things unique. And just building a new application now, and it's like, I immediately now just do what I did here, right? And it's good to go. So we're in this intro. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, you really grow as a developer too. Like, I don't know what this AI era is gonna ring in, but I'm a different programmer than I was 15 years ago. 15 years ago, I thought I was a pretty good programmer, but there's bits of that code I look at, I'm just like, what were you thinking? And there's just decisions I have to live with for the, just like, and we're not talking about tabs versus spaces because man, I was random on that approach. I mean, architecture, like threading models and who's responsible for rendering. I was reading a review for the app and they're like, this thing's burning up my CPU. My iPhone's on fire. So I spent a day like testing 5 different rendering engines for it to see which one's most efficient because phones change and libraries change and all that kind of stuff. And during that, I'm just like, what idiot wrote this code? Trying to tear it up. I'm just trying to swap out the renderer for a different renderer. It was all supposed to be nicely factored. In my head, it's all nicely factored. It was not nicely factored, James. My God. But what should have been like a easy, oh, I'll just try this rendering engine. I'll just try that rendering engine. Ended up being 2 weeks of work of just replumb the code so I could swap out the engines and then try out different rendering engines to see which ones were most efficient and that kind of thing. So I just wanted to put that out there. Like the other thing with legacy apps is, my God, you change as a developer. And now with AIs, like the AIs, I had to write an agents MD file for the first time for iCircuit because, new apps today, I start with the agents MD file. Old apps, I'm just like, gosh, what do I even put in here? I'm just like, sorry. I just start with apologies to the AI. You're going to see a lot of scary things in here. It's 15 years. Don't judge me. That's like my opening sentence to the AI.
I love it. Well, let's talk about iCircuit in the day and age of AI, where you're building more apps than ever, more than me probably at this point, shipping more app updates than ever. Like, how are you balancing iCircuit? I mean, I think with the interesting part that we talked about with AI and AI coding, especially as it's evolved so much in the last year, and especially the last few months with new models have gotten so good, is it gives you the capabilities to now write more code and write more applications and have more ideas that come to life. But with that also is the trade-off that now you're either maintaining or playing around with more things, although they can be generated faster than ever, right? Still doesn't mean my GitHub is up and to the right, so that's good. But I think one thing that I think about is like, how does that impacted like the legacy application? A lot of people talk about, oh, well, AI is great and greenfield apps, right? And they're brand new. Just go to town and create something from scratch. But brownfield, this application's there. There's choices made. There's lots of things. Like, how has it either helped? Has it not helped? Are you ignoring things? Like, what's the sort of last few months or last 6 months or so, or even last 28 days of February been like in the days of
I actually want to take that from a few different approaches because you're asking how has it helped or not helped. That question almost doesn't matter because what's happened is AI has changed how I program. Full stop. So I don't anymore think like, oh, here's a feature I need to go implement, time to go dig through the code and all that kind of stuff. If there's a new thing I want to change in the code, I go to the AI, I put it in plan mode, and I write out 3 or 4 paragraphs of here's what I want to accomplish. Please go through and analyze my code and let's have a discussion about this right now. So I don't even do what I used to do of like just jump in the code or anything like that. It's AI has changed how I work. And I think for the better. It's still too early days to tell. It'll be in 5-10 years, we can all reflect back and think about how this is. But right now, the idea of like just jumping into the code and just changing a few things seems so primitive and barbaric. Like I didn't have a discussion about it. I didn't plan it out. I didn't think it through. I didn't have it analyze all the things. So like, if there's something small, like there's a funny little rendering, no, even that one I would have a discussion. So let's just say it's changed how I program. So I always start in that position. Now, I would say AI has definitely helped. And I disagree and I think I've said this on the podcast before, that whole greenfield versus, and I hate this word, brownfield. It's a terrible word. I disagree because I think the AIs are better when they have a lot of code that they can reference and an established architecture. I am personally the most horrified when the AI starts creating its own architecture from some idiotic React pattern it saw on the web or something like that, or it just runs off and comes with some data model or some serialization model. I'm like, no, those are all baked into the app and those are not going to change ever because I have thousands and thousands of users over 15 years. We are not breaking compatibility on anything. I think that's my second statement in Agents MD. Like, backwards compatibility is the primary consideration for any changes to this app. So I would say Brownfield is better for the AIs because it can see my coding style, warts and all, and it can see my architecture, and it knows to work within the bounds of that architecture. So now if I go up to it and I say, hey, I want a new component that emulates this chip or this component, it's wonderful. It can go on the internet. It can look up that component, download a data sheet, get the specs for it. Then we'll have a little discussion. Do we want a behavioral model or do we want to model it actually electronically? I'll usually say behavioral. We'll decide what the parameters are for it. We'll get it really nailed down. And then I'm just like, go, baby, go. So I think I'm still not a huge fan of the PR approach of writing an issue and then assigning it to Copilot. I was big on that in the early days, but now I much prefer to have a discussion about implementation details first, and then I let it run off. Okay, that was a lot of words. I think I've embraced AI. Obviously, on this podcast, we talk about it a lot, and it's changed how I work, and I approach all things from that perspective now.
Well, I think it's a good, a lot of people see people running, and we talked about like crazy rough loops and like this, and it's just running and just doing these things. We have squads of people, and we have all this stuff. And like, I think that's fine. It can do it. Like, it can go off in fleets of things and do stuff and all this stuff. But like, you may not want to do it on iCircuit, right? And I feel like what's fascinating about just learning how you're using with iCircuit is, even for little bugs, is like you are, inquiring information, you're gathering information, you're things that you would do manually in the past, verifying information. You're now able to do that in much less time, and then get that into the application in faster time in general. And I agree with you. One thing that I did, we were recently on this trip to Korea, and if you look at my GitHub status, my green bubbles, you can see that even though I only brought a phone with me, I had no computer or anything like that, my green bubbles continued because I have the GitHub mobile app, and I assign things to agents. I assign issues to it. I'm shipping stuff. I have CI/CD piping going. So when we're on a train to Busan, as long as there's not zombies coming at me, I'm able to get new releases, pushed to me to test flight automatically. And I was doing that on the way. I actually renamed the Trim Tally Way app because I was like, I think this app name is bad. And I was like, Heather, what should I name it? And she's like, just name it Way. And I was like, that's probably a better name. So now it's called Way. It's getting an update in the App Store because we have a favorite app that we use called Bin, like Bin, BEEN, like I've been somewhere. And all you do is track where you go in the world. It's called Bin, like I've been there.
Got it.
So keep it simple, right? So so now it's called Way. But even doing that, yeah. So that is substantial updates and doing stuff, and it's there. But one of the things I do is I go into the mobile app and I select a repo, and then I inquire Copilot from there, and it has the context of the repo, and I say, I want to add this new feature, I want to fix this new bug. I would like basically to work on this new feature, this new thing that I found. Let's draft it out, ask me questions. And just like you're inside VS Code or the CLI, it'll ask you questions. And then you can say, okay, implement it. And it'll start working on it and open a PR right away. So it doesn't even create an issue anymore. It's just like, cool, let's start working on it and go to town, like an agent task, which is pretty cool. So I think like that's another great way of working on it in general. So would you say that the apps, like from your perspective, like in the last year, are you feeling better in the direction that it's going? Do you feel like it is heading in a right place, like that you've have a long-term future for it? Like, are you going to reinvent it with all of the, AI craziness that's happening? Or like, well, what's your thoughts on iCircuit over the next, year?
Um, that's funny. No, I'm not going to reinvent the app, but it is 2026. The app definitely needs AI features itself. So keep using AI to work on it because, yeah, that's changed how I work. And I do love the asynchronous part. So it's not so much like I'm not writing code from an airport, but it's more like I can work on 2 bugs at a time instead of 1 bug at a time. I can have something churning in the background, things like that. Um, it's a sensitive subject, the second part. So I do plan on adding AI features to iCircuit and iCircuit 3D itself. And then there's a small part of me that wants a third iCircuit, iCircuit AI, that is a little bit of a redesign, maybe a kind of ground up reworking for like, what would this app be in 2026? In the same way that IDEs are going through a revolution right now. We're still kind of in the wild, wild west of that. They're all flailing about trying to figure out what the next version of a development environment should be in the future. And I feel like that same thing is going to happen to every app out there. And so my short-term plan is to add some nice AI features to the current apps. But there is that little devil on my shoulder yelling at me like, what does it mean for an app to be like AI first? What could we do in this space that's a little more unique and different? Or if this app didn't have 15 years of legacy, if my second sentence of this agents file wasn't backwards compatibility, what if we throw all that away and go again?
Yeah.
I'm not sure I can recreate 100% the success of iCircuit 1. But there's always that itch to start fresh and things like that. Thankfully, as a more mature developer, I can throw away that itch more and more. It's that lesson I said before of like, I can just focus on this app. So I'll do that first, add nice AI features to the app itself. But yeah, there's always that devil on your shoulder saying, hey, you could start from scratch. Greenfield this puppy. You don't want to be in a brown field. That sounds gross and brown. You want to be in a green one, all
green one,
vibrant and pretty.
Well, it's cool. It's a cool journey that I think, hopefully people found this of interest because at some point we all kind of get to that. Like I look at my applications that have been there and it's the same thing. I'm like, what do I do? Like, do I try to like add new features, do this, reinvent it, improve this? Do I have to upgrade it? I have to modernize it, right? Like what is it like long term? And iCircuit's a big app, right? So I don't have big apps like you do. So I think it's even makes it more complex, but it's cool to learn, the story, the journey, and then what it looks like in the modern age to work on these big applications as these things have continued to help us be more productive and, help build really unique applications and add new features in a much faster time. Well, Frank, thanks for telling the story of iCircuit. If we haven't, there's probably another podcast where it's like the same, but it's different because now everything's different, right?
Oh, yeah.
It was like 5 years ago, completely different in general. So let us know if you have an application, that you've been working on, improving, doing stuff, and how maybe AI has been helping or not helping, or what that looks like. We love to learn. Go to mergeconflict.fm. There's links to all of our socials. And then you can also find us on the YouTubes. Search Merge Conflict Podcast. I think will come up. It's at Merge Conflict FM, just like everything else. But anything else you want to add, Frank?
No, this was wonderful. Oh, I will add some nice updates are out now for iCircuit. If I haven't said that word enough on here, here's my full advertisement. New updates are out. The app's better than ever. It's, in the words of Steve Jobs, this is the best version of iCircuit ever released before. So I hope you'll all go out there and update it. And if there is a bug, please let me know quickly so I can go fix it.
Sounds good. Yes, go give iCircuit a look. Just search iCircuit. It's the only one inside the App Store, or iCircuit 3D. I guess there's two. So buy them all. So give Frank the money. It's the best way to support this podcast. Is to give Frank the money.
Forget James. He's got a job.
Yeah, all good. All good here. All right, that's going to do it for this week's Emerge Conflict. So until next time, I'm James Montemagno.
And I'm Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
Peace.